Welcome to Moments with Marianne. This is your host, Marianne Pastana, and I am so excited to be celebrating 10 years of meaningful conversations with you. As we step into our new primetime hour, it's such an honor to share this exciting new chapter with you. So whether you're starting your day out, headed to work, or listening from wherever you are, this hour is designed to bring you thoughtful dialogue, fresh insight, and inspiring stories so you can make every moment count. So thank you for being here with me today, and let's dive in. We're here today with special guest, Meg Tuohey, who's here to share with us her new book, HeartPrint, Unlock the Wisdom of You. What if what you're feeling isn't a lack of motivation, but a sense of disconnection? Do you know how to repair that and come back to yourself? Well, today's guest is here to share with us just that. Meg Tuohey is a licensed psychotherapist, sought-after speaker, and host of the Wisdom Stripes podcast. Her work centers on helping women reconnect with themselves, understand their inner world, and lead with clarity and wisdom, especially during moments of trauma, transition, or identity fracture. Grounded in evidence-based psychology and shaped by decades of clinical experience, Meg is known for meeting women where they are and helping them move beyond survival into grounded leadership within themselves, their families, and their community. So welcome to the show, Meg Tuohey.
I am so happy to be here, Marianne. Thank you so much for having me.
Well, what a great honor it is to have you here. And my goodness, we have so much to discuss. What inspired you to write your book, HeartPrint?
You know, it was an inner calling. HeartPrint is based on the idea that we're as unique as our fingerprints, but our heartprint is who we're meant to grow into. And it turns out I'm meant to be an author who writes about how to help women in particular reconnect to who they really are and live a life on the inside that feels really good.
Well, what a great, just a profound book. And I understand it took you quite some time to write.
It did. You know, it took me 5 years. And if I had have known it would have taken me 5 years, I don't know that I would have believed that. But it did. I had to learn how to write a book. And this is a novel that is also a journal of types, which is also a reflective opportunity for the reader to engage in very small exercises to find their own heartprint. So it's this multi-modality within a book. So it was a complicated structure to figure out as well.
Well, it's so just well put together. And one of the things I understand is your book is called A Blueprint for Living a Life That Feels Good. Why is
Yeah.
that?
Yes. Well, I feel like who we really are is like a seed. And when we plant a seed and we take care of it, and we see the full expression of what that seed grows into, whatever kind of plant or cactus or a desert bloom, whatever it is, it was already whole to begin with. And I think we forget that we're already whole. And as we build a life, if we disconnect from who we really are, maybe to do things the right way, in inverted commas, or because we have to in order to survive, the gap between the essence or the blueprint of who we really are and the life we're living is where we feel disjointed, we feel disconnected, and it can be a slippery slope down into some experiences of life that end in anxiousness, depression, isolation, withdrawal, etc.
Well, I understand that's one of the topics that you really touch on and talk to women about is that you're not unmotivated, you're disconnected. Can you share on that for us?
Oh my goodness, women are just magical, Marianne. And if we find ourselves in a place with low energy, it means the life we're living doesn't spark us. And so if we remember Marie Kondo, what sparks joy? What sparks joy is living a life that's coherent with who you really are. And so maybe you might be in a context where your work isn't fulfilling or meaningful, or you're having difficulties in your relationships, or you're under stress from a financial perspective or a health perspective, or some other kind of external stressor. And that load on us can shrink our connection to ourselves. And then we forget who we really are. And then we don't take steps towards the things that light us up. And so we're not living in that creative space of, is this decision I'm making going to move me towards who I really am or away? And that's where we find the epicenter of this conversation.
Well, and to dovetail with that, so how do we get to this place where we can really connect with our inner wisdom and identify that self doubt?
Yes. And this is the big question, isn't it? Because that thread is inside all of us. So when we were born whole and complete. We had no idea about anything other than what we needed. We were deeply connected. And life has eroded over time the strength or width of that connection. It has become thin. And the thinner it is, the harder it is for us to find that inner wisdom. But the great news is it is still right there waiting for us to reconnect. So, how do we do that? We do that through the things that lift us up. Now, these are the things that you might already be like, yes, well, it could be meditation, right? But it could be intentionality. It could be what we call attunement, where you have one hand on your heart and one on your belly button, and you're grounded and you feel into, from a head and heart perspective, what is it that is my next right step? What is it that is going to take me in the direction that I'm being called to do here? And that groundedness, that integration, that coherence with your body, mind, spirit, that is where the calling lives. That's where that thread of connection to your inner wisdom lives. And so, however you get yourself there, whether it is through running or swimming or meditation or art or conversations with loved ones, whatever down regulates you and centers you, that's where you'll find that thread of wisdom that will unlock your own wisdom.
So, how do we get to a place where we can do a couple things? One is to identify the wounds that block us
Mm.
and really work through those to become our authentic self.
Right? And so what happens with heart prints is that over time, we come in and we're fully immersed in who we really are. And over time, the human experience chips away at us. Sometimes it's our family systems, sometimes it's tragedies, sometimes it's a context we inherit, sometimes it's mistakes that we've made. When we have pain and confusion, it narrows that experience of connection with self. We need to protect ourselves. So it's like those medieval villages in Europe where they have the stone fortresses and they're around you cross over the bridge and in the olden days, they could pull up the bridge. And that's so people can't get in. And so it is with the human condition. When we have been in pain and confusion for too long, we become defensive. We put our drawbridges up. And when we do that, it's really hard for us to find our sense of who we really are because we're busy protecting ourselves, which is a very different physiology than your physiology of feeling incoherence with yourself. One takes you away, that keeping you protected is saving your life, but it's not allowing you to connect with yourself. And so that physiology, that's fight, flight, freeze, it is stress, it is overwhelm, it is crisis. Those are going to save your life, but you don't have great access to your heart print from there. That's going to get you to solid ground. And then we need to reconnect you to that heart mind coherence so that you get to translate who you really are and then make decisions about what you want to build after the pain and confusion has been processed.
So, why is it important for us to understand our heart print?
I think the most important, the most joyful thing about living a life that your inside matches on your outside is that resonance. The resonance that is sort of like You know, that smell before it rains, where it's just very kind of electric and enlivening. We feel best when the life we live on the inside matches the life we've got on the outside. And so when we want higher experiences of contentment and satisfaction and fulfillment, this is where our relationship with self, our relationship back to HeartPrint, allows us to have the great energy of creation. And when we're in that forward momentum, we have great access to flow. Life feels amazing, and we are really good leaders and role models for those around us, which means we leave the legacy of our HeartPrint, which can trickle down through generations to come in a really positive way.
So, how do we identify experiences or life choices that pull us away from our essence?
Yes. So this is the heart of the matter, Marianne. We are at what we call attunement. And attunement is knowing yourself well enough that you know when what your goals are, what your values are, what's important to you. And with that clarity, when you're at a decision point, a fork in the road, and you're at that pause before you decide, will I go left or will I go right? In that moment, we do the hand on the chest and the other hand on the belly button, 2 feet firmly on the ground. Deep breath in, and we remember what's important to us. We remember what we want to be known for. When we've finished this life and our loved ones continue on, we remember what it is that we want our legacy to be. And then in that decision point, we say, which decision gets me closest to that? Now, sometimes we don't have great decisions to choose from. We take the best next step that we can based on the context that we're in. And if we keep doing the next right thing, eventually we will build our way out of what it is that's hurting us and into what it is that lights us up.
So, how about those folks that have a hard time finding out what really lights them up? Maybe they just
Mhm.
feel so disconnected that it's hard
Mm.
to even get any type of resonance for that.
Yeah, well, do you know what we do, Marianne? We say slice it thinner. And I like to start with the first thing you drink in the morning. What is the first thing that you could drink in the morning that would feel warm and soothing? So for me, it's a cup of tea made exactly the way I like it. And it is some dim light and a slow waking up process. So I get up before my kids. For others, it might be a 3 shot espresso made with a particular type of beans. And it's the process of making that feels nourishing. And the rhythm of making that feels soothing. That is you finding that thread of the essence of who you are. And we start small. And then once we've locked that in, we look for the next thing and the next segment of our day. And it might be, what kind of toothpaste do I like to brush my teeth with? And it is a very simple thing. Do I like it very spicy or very not spicy? If I could pick one type of toothpaste that when I put it on my toothbrush and went to brush my teeth, I would know that I'd really thought about it and cared about what I was doing, that would feel a certain kind of way. That's an interesting next step that we can take. And you can imagine that small things like this often add up over time to a very different relationship with self. And that's how any big change happens. It happens in small, sliced thin moments where you're like, look at this cup of tea. It is just right for me right now. And you might only have a few beats with it, but what matters is you had those beats. And that got banked into your nervous system, banked into your identity, and banked into your heart. You're like, look at me take care of myself. And then you might have to go and do a big day because a lot of us do. And that moment was just yours.
In the book, you talk about the wise woman. Do we
Mm.
all have a wise woman?
We sure do. That's that inner thread, Marianne. So the wise woman is my name for that inner thread. And if you're a beautiful man listening to this, we have the good man, the wise woman, and the wise person. So you can pick whichever one of those monikers suits you best. but it is the name for that inner knowing that exists in all of us. And if you would like to call it something different, by all means, go ahead. But yes, that thread is there for everyone.
So, how can we lead a life that's more in alignment with our heart print?
I think it's about small choices often. So we think about our values, we think about our beliefs, we think about our outcomes. So I like to skip ahead on our timeline. Eric Erickson's a psychosocial psychologist, a researcher, and he proposes that age 65 onwards, we are looking back. And we're looking back to say, did I do a good job? Did I live a life that was meaningful to me? And have I left something of value? And we spend the rest of our lives from about 65 onwards weighing that up. And you're going to end on one end of the spectrum or the other. And that will be I did or I didn't. Or maybe I did in some ways, but I didn't in others. And that bit in the middle is quite jarring for a human. And so, what we're looking for is 80% of the time, am I making choices that allow me to feel coherent with how I want to be remembered, for the legacy that I want to leave, for the kind of person that I know that I actually really am?
When people are doing this type of assessment, do they often get to the place where they have a lot of regret? And if so, how do we deal with that?
It's a lovely question. You know, regret is inside every one of us. It's like every emotion. And sometimes people call that a negative emotion, or they might say something is a positive emotion. And the truth about emotions is they are information. They allow us to understand what's important to us, no matter which way we're looking at it. So if you are a beautiful human with regret, then welcome to the club, because you can't get through life without some regrets. And the main honoring you can do yourself is to honor the learning that comes with what the regret is. So it is about partnering with our emotions in order to make sense of who we really are and why that hurt us so much that we have a regret. Is it because we have strayed from our heart print, or is it because something happened? And that will only you will know what that is. But the reflective practice of being a curious friend to yourself to make sense of why the regret is showing up is a really big part of attunement to self and strengthening that connection to your wise woman, your good man, or your wise person.
So many people that are high achieving, high performers on the outside, they just might look like they've got everything together, but on the inside, they're so unfulfilled. Why is
Mm.
that disconnection happening?
I think that's the heart print, Marianne. Sometimes just because we're successful at something, it doesn't mean that it's in full alignment or congruency with who we really are. And sometimes it is. And we're looking at a huge amount of pain and confusion that hasn't been processed. So when we have unprocessed pain and confusion, that's where we can often live a life on the outside that doesn't match ourselves on the inside, because that connection to self has narrowed so much.
What is one simple practice listeners can begin to do today to reconnect with that inner wisdom?
I feel like we need to downregulate our lovely listeners, because we're busy people. And so we're probably highly agitated, or at least alert. So, in order to access wisdom, we need to downregulate. So, you might do some belly breathing, where we drop the breath right down into our belly, so that when we breathe, our belly actually pushes out and in, and we can really notice that. And then we're going to put our feet on the floor, and we're going to really feel and anchor ourselves into this moment where we actually are. So you might look around and you might name 5 things you can see, 5 things you can smell, 5 things you can touch, and maybe you can taste something as well. We're going to use your senses to anchor you in today, into this moment right now. And from here, we'll do that thing where we pop your hand on your belly button and the other hand on your chest. Oh, and we'll just arrive. And then we'll notice what floats past us in our beautiful minds. And then when we feel like we're ready, we'll get up and we'll ask ourselves, what is my next right thing? And we'll be surprised at what the answer comes.
So, for folks that are new to this and
Mm,
might have really spent a lot of time in fear and self doubt,
mm,
how do they get to a point where they can either minimize that inner dialogue or really
mhm.
recognize the heartprint messages that are coming to them?
Yes, it's a beautiful question because oftentimes when we're in crisis, pain, and confusion, we are really busy saving our own lives. And that is important and necessary. And also, it's a place that we want to be transitory. We don't want to live there, particularly if we have to live there for too long. So, how do we start to build our way out? I find that the 10,000-foot view is a really helpful view or metaphor, which is in this current context, if I could fly up in the air 10,000 feet and look down at all the players and the tangle in front of me, what can I see is important to me? And what is the most tricky part of this? And if that is tricky, what is the next right step I can do that will help me untangle that? Even if it is 10% today and 10% tomorrow, and so on. We need to have perspective. And when we're in that physiology of stress, our perspective gets thwarted by us trying to save our own life. And we think we're doing good thinking. And sometimes we do reasonable thinking, but quite a lot of the time we're making decisions that are moving us away from what's important to us. So we're just looking always for perspective and connection.
In your book, you emphasize living in congruence. What does that really look like in real life, especially when, we have responsibilities and expectations? Those just don't go away.
They don't. Look, we've never been busier as humans. And this is exactly why we need the antidote of HeartPrint, because I'm a busy mum. And I'd say a lot of people here understand what it's like to be a busy person or a busy parent in a busy life context where we've never lived quite like this as we are in 2026. And so that busyness is not going anywhere and maybe even will get worse. We don't know. What we do know is that we are people who need to bring that steadiness to ourselves. And so, if not us, then who? So, relentlessly, we remind ourselves that we are the lead of our own life. We set the tone, we set the pace, and there will be some moments of our day where we need to go fast. And there will be other pockets that you can carve out that allow you to have this rest and rejuvenation and recovery so you have enough energy to move forward again. And we're always looking for that coherence of, yep, I'm busy and I'm in the right place. I'm doing the right things.
Oh my goodness, Meg. Your work is just so heartfelt and amazing. Where can people go to learn more about you and the work you do and be part of your community?
Thank you so much. I appreciate those words to me. That's really lovely of you. So you can grab HeartPrint from Amazon or Barnes& and Noble, and you can follow me at Meg Tuohey official on Instagram.
Well, Meg, thank you so much for taking the time to be on the show with us here today.
I've had such a good time, Marianne. I could do this all day and all night and all day again. So thank you for being a wonderful host who asks wonderful questions.
Well, thank you, Meg. It's been such an honor to spend this time with you and to talk about your new book, HeartPrint. Make sure to visit Megan's website at megantuohey.com for more information on her work and to be part of her community. Well, we're at the end of our time today. I'd like to thank everyone for tuning in. You're listening to Moments with Marianne, where we make every moment count.
In In a single moment, your life can change. Moments with Marianne is a transformative hour that covers an endless array of topics with the best of the best. Her guests are leaders in their fields, ranging from inspirational authors, top industry leaders, and business and spiritual entrepreneurs. Each guest is gifted and a true visionary, a recognized leader in her own work, and while teaching others to develop, refocus, and grow, Marianne will bring the best guest and sometimes a special surprise. Don't miss this. You never know just which moment will change your life forever. Make sure to tune in and visit momentswithmarianne.com for more information.